All aboard for Animation Station. Hi, and welcome to a brand new episode, 1 year and some amount of months later, of Animation Station. I am Sparkz Witty, your usual host, and I'm joined this time, for the first time ever, by Ryan Eleopoulos of the Fake Nerd Podcast.
What's up, Choombas? I'm feeling pretty preem, living here in Night City, not feeling gonk at all. I played Cyberpunk for 100 hours, so I have that terminology in my brain, baby. Let's get serial.
And of course, Brandon T. McClure is joining us as well.
Hello, I'm here as well.
And we are here to talk about the Netflix anime Cyberpunk Edgerunners from Studio Trigger and CD Projekt Red, with direction by Imaishi, who we love, for Gurren Lagann, Kill la Kill, Pro Mare, Brandon's favorite Star Wars project ever.
The twins.
Yes. So we're going to dive into the entire series, all 10 episodes. We've been wanting to do this. I was the one who needed to catch up, and I've done so.
First of all, thank you, my friends, for doing this episode, because I am so in love with everything Cyberpunk. This was a dream that is being fulfilled. So I'm happy to be here talking with my favorite chooms and my favorite choombas, which means friends in the Cyberpunk world, just so you know.
Yeah, this is definitely one I wanted to make sure we got on the books before the year was over. So I'm really happy to do it. Ryan, why don't you kick things off?
Dude, I'll
with how
kick
you
it.
Felt about this whole show.
I love it. I think it's fantastic. I'm happy to watch it twice because the smaller stuff faded from my memory, while the big stuff obviously is kept with me because it's really sad and great. I think this, in terms of being an adaptation, is the greatest adaptation from a video game to a different material ever made. Like you think of like Silent Hill, Sonic, Uncharted, like they take aspects of the game, but they're not living in the game. This takes place in the world of the game. Every single location, there are characters you meet, there are weapons they use, there's terminology they use that is straight from the game. The visuals when they're talking to people and the words pop up, or when they're hacking stuff and you see a little camera stuff. When you go to the map, that's just from the game. So I have an extra love and appreciation because they worked hand in hand with CD Projekt Red, Trigger, to make this like the most fulfilled world that I've almost ever seen. And I don't think you don't have to be a fan of Cyberpunk to appreciate it because it's so well visualized and so well detailed. And they don't shy away. Like they just throw you in with all the terminology that I was just saying earlier, like the stupid words like choom and gonk and stuff. And like, you just have to get on board with it like a new sci-fi world. I think it's an exceptional anime, and it is a perfect view of what living in a cyberpunk world is. Cyberpunk is based off a tabletop game like Dungeons and Dragons. So imagine D&D, but it's even sadder and you're full of cybernetic parts. I love it. I love this show so much. And again, I think I love it even more because I am so familiar with the world. So I'm happy to be here.
I'll bounce off that and say I think that's definitely like I wish I was as engaged with the game that I've done that, because I think it would latch into me a little bit deeper than it has.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good show. I really like all the characters. I like the story that it's telling. I like the world a lot. I think I hear how you talk about it, and I know I'm falling a little short because of not connecting the game stuff enough, but that it makes me want to play the game.
Yeah,
for sure. And I think they still did something really special here. Obviously having Imaishi's vision helps it a lot. We'll get into some of that. It's gorgeous. It sounds awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Great music. A lot of people know there's great music throughout the show. I really liked it. It's very emotional. Really worked for me, Brandon.
I think I'm sitting in the same place as you, Sparkz. I'm coming at this in a little bit of a disadvantage, of course, because I did not get the chance to rewatch the show before we did this, and I wish I had. But I think Ryan is absolutely correct that it kind of exists in the same spaces like Arcane does. Although Arcane is more of like an adaptation of what they're of like characters within the game, whereas this is not. This is kind of what we kept talking about, like Halo should have done, right? Make a show set within the world and not necessarily make a story about Master Chief. And that's, I think, where Halo has really failed, is that they've just told a really shitty story about Master Chief, whereas this just told a really good story set within the world of Cyberpunk. I love Hiroyuki Imaishi. I think he is a fantastic director. He's one of my favorite directors of all time. I have seen many of his projects to believe that. We just did we recorded it, is not out at the point of this recording, but we have recorded our holiday annual where I talk about how Pro Mare is my favorite movie of the year. It was directed by him. Fantastic movie. Netflix has many animated video game adaptations when you count like Castlevania, Arcane, Cyberpunk, now Dragon Age, Dota. Like they have many of them, and I think Cyberpunk is it needs to be considered like gold standard for adapting a video game.
Real quick,
At least,
Brandon,
if not real quickly, if not the adaptation, gold standard, but one of them that should be considered when adapting a video game. Sorry, what would you say?
I'm just making sure you can hear us because our screen's completely frozen.
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I was making sure because both of our screens are frozen, and I just want to make sure you can hear us. Like I was listening to everything you said.
Can you see us too?
Yeah, you're doing everything just fine.
Oh, we'll probably make a cut around. Do you want to try and
here? 1 second. My TV is.
Give us 1 sec.
Okay, that was my TV then. Okay, weird.
Interesting.
Okay,
so, we're good now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why? Why did you do that? Okay. Anyway, yes, Brandon, I do agree. This is one of the gold standards. Like Arcane is like, it's impossible to beat Arcane. That's like you're trying to fight against the Godfather. Like
sure.
Arcane is just another level. It took more than half a decade to make that thing. But yeah, I think Cyberpunk is still like an exceptional piece of work, just because again, who's involved in it and the care and the attention to detail to the world. Because like there are so many Netflix adaptations, and a lot of them are like, hey, we are going to tell a version of this story and not do what like an Arcane or a Cyberpunk are doing. And I just think it benefits so much because like instead of trying to like retell a story that's been told before, just do something new. And like with a world like again like an Arcane with Runeterra, I think that's the world they live in.
Yeah.
Or Night City, like it is an impossibility to do the same story twice. Like there are so many things you can do in these worlds. Like a Star Wars, again, like you can do anything in these worlds. So like the fact they're like, hey, let's tell our own original story that's in line with the D&D aspects of Cyberpunk and also being in line with the video games. It's just like it is a perfect one adaptation and just a really great story of someone's descent into madness and like what they think they need to do to live a perfect life. And in Night City, it usually ends in sadness, pretty much almost every time.
Yeah. On that note, I do think like video games that don't have characters like Sonic, where like you really can't do a lot in Sonic's world without Sonic in it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that or just the main characters of that game, like when a game has the adaptability where you can tell a story with the world, not necessarily with the characters that you know from the game, I think that's a smart way to go. So something like this, there are other franchises that don't have that luxury. Like you can't truly do Mario's world without involving Mario characters.
It helps, yeah. Role-playing games specifically are very good about being adapted. Again, like Dragon Age or like Runeterra, where you don't have a specific core antagonist like John Spartan or Kratos, where like you have to stick with that. Whereas like Night City, there are literally thousands of characters, and like the point is you make your own character. So like I think the freedom's there.
I think Sparkz is absolutely correct. Like if you're doing an Uncharted, you have to do Nathan Drake. You should not have done it the way the movie did it, but you have to do the story of Nathan Drake. You can't do it otherwise. But with a story like Arcane, like this, even Halo, honestly, even Halo, because Halo's universe is so expansive and there are many books and there are many, many different avenues for that story to go. You could do a story without Master Chief. He is kind of the exception to the rule. Like the franchise is built around him, but you could have done an adaptation without him. But Cyberpunk is such an expansive world. Night City is such a great location with so many different colorful characters that you can do really anything. And you have not broken the game. You have just expanded on it.
You've enhanced it because now you can meet some of these people and collect their shit, and you can wear David's jacket in the game as I am doing.
And it does feel like such a smart and obvious way to go about it, but we've seen it go wrong before. The Assassin's Creed live action film, I think, famously doesn't tries to do that, but doesn't live up to the standards that are expected of it.
That's so weird too, because they do their like entirely own thing, and where they use like different technology and different ways of doing it. I'm like, why not just why do it? Why do this? I don't get it.
Yeah, and still supposed to be set inside the world with characters we're familiar. I think I will dive into like the fact that this is specifically a Netflix animation project. I think like, yes, I agree with Brandon. I think this does set a standard. It stands above a lot of the other video game to anime adaptations. That being said, I notice where the Netflix budget has changed how this project probably would have looked completely under not under the constraints of the Netflix budget. Specifically, like Imaishi is not known for having projects where you have long shots of
stillness
of characters where you can't see their mouths. He usually prefers you to see animated faces. And I notice a lot in Edgerunners that we don't, that we get a lot of not seeing that. Now the animation looks incredible, and like, you know, whatever they had to do to make the show is fine. But it definitely stood out that I'm like, that is like the most Imaishi thing about this project, even though he's involved, is that a lot of times we're not focusing on faces. And Imaishi really loves faces.
I'll agree with that. I think not this isn't a counter, but like I 100% agree with that. The difference is he's like Trigger and Imaishi is so talented that all the still shots where nothing is happening, I still feel like things are happening.
Absolutely.
Very much like Evangelion, where you don't always see Gendo talking, but the intent and the malice is there. And there are so many beautiful shots where there are people just talking for minutes at a time where nothing's happening.
Yeah.
Where it's just panning, but it's panning on Night City, or it's doing a cool angle where like, even though he's limited in the budget in the show, he's still utilizing it as much as he can instead of being lazy about it.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's
that's
not.
kind of,
Go ahead, Brandon.
Well, I was just going to say that kind of bouncing off what you guys are saying, which is that the idea of, look, we've seen Castlevania, and Castlevania is hurt a lot by its budget. Frankly, Powerhouse Animation is hurt quite a lot by its Netflix budget, and Cyberpunk Edgerunners is a gorgeous anime. And Imaishi is the kind of director who can take a budget that he's probably not used to working with, a smaller budget than he's used to working with, and doing something with it, because he's a visionary director. He is a director who can work around it, find ways to still make something look visually interesting, even if he can't spend the money or the time to animate the faces as he would like to. And I think that's where this show lies in has its strength. And with a director not as talented as Imaishi, hypothetically speaking, let's just throw out this film, this animated show was created by a Korean animated house and not a Japanese animation house. Like so many Netflix ones are, we would still see probably beautiful animation, but you would feel the budget constraints
and
a lot more.
3D.
Sure, and it'd probably be 3D. Like you'd feel the budget constraints a lot more. But because Imaishi is such a visionary director, he can work around it in a way that still is visually a feast for the eyes.
Yeah, this isn't presented to be like a knock on the show or anything. This is more just if you're familiar, it stands apart. You do recognize that this is different from the projects he usually makes, just in the style of how he's framing like conversational shots, essentially.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the conversational shots are just not normally the way he would do it in Gurren Lagann, Kill la Kill, The Twins, Promare. Like it's just not, the Twins is maybe a little bit different because that's a short. But it's not the same. But that being said, I just earlier this year I did a rewatch of Cowboy Bebop, the anime, and I will say that like what Imaishi is doing, he's doing the same thing Cowboy Bebop did. Cowboy Bebop was working around having really gorgeous animation, especially in its action scenes, but it didn't have a huge budget at the time. So its conversational shots, they're a lot like what Imaishi's doing here. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a direct nod, especially to Cowboy Bebop. And that stands out to me only because I watched it earlier this year, but it's very much in that same pattern. So it's using what you can in your resources. Again, only super noticeable if you're familiar with his work. Like this is just different because it's just the circumstances that he's under.
If you put a scene from Kill la Kill and a scene from this next to each other, you're like, no, they're not the same. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the thing about Cyberpunk also is like Cyberpunk is an entire world about huge moments and small moments. Yeah. Like at least in every episode, there's one big action scene and then one really heartfelt like talking scene. And that's what Cyberpunk is. Like these people are living 11 out of 10s every day of their life, trying not to die every single day. So every conversation they have, it's like the last conversation they'll ever have. Like every time they talk to someone, it could be the last conversation they ever have. So it's always intense. So when they get to these smaller moments, when it's just people talking, like it feels really extreme. Specifically, like when David and Lucy are talking, and it's like the further we go on, and it's like the love they have for each other, and like they're both trying to save each other by doing it in like different ways. It's really beautiful, and like in a way where like this is gonna sound really weird. Like I haven't seen Promare, but like you don't think of like really beautiful small moments in like Kill la Kill or Gurren Lagann. At least I haven't seen those in a while, but it's not what you immediately think of. When I think of this Cyberpunk show, I'm not thinking about the giant seismic fights. I'm thinking of the beautiful small moments. Because that's what I do in the game. You have 30-minute conversations with someone by a dock. And it's just like living in this world so rough. So finding a real connection and trying to keep that connection is like so important. Specifically to Lucy. I think Lucy is probably my favorite character in the show. I think she's so well realized, and her power set is. I played as Lucy in the game. I was like hacking heads and like whipping people, and I'm like, I love this character. It's me.
I think what works so well for that about the world of Cyberpunk is like these are characters who they're all kind of more or less committed on the same path of I'm here for a good time, not for a long time.
100%.
And they all know it to some extent. And there's some resistance depending on who the character is to that concept or that kind of fatalism about the situation.
Yeah.
I think
Lucy
was that, and David makes that different.
Yes.
And David
goes towards that.
To save
her, yeah.
And ultimately, like that's the tragedy of it is that there's a point very clearly where David could have pulled out with Lucy, and this all could have been a very different life for them.
Yeah.
But we're not going to see it.
Yeah. Talking about the characters, like our main character, David Martinez, like first episode, his mom wants him at the top of Arasaka Tower. She spent her whole life trying to get him into this academy, and then she dies. And then his goal is, I'm going to be the number one stunner. I'm going to do this for my mom. And then he meets Lucy. He's like, I'm going to do this for my mom and Lucy. And then Lucy's like, you don't have to do this. I don't want you to do this. I just want to be with you. You don't have to be a legend. He's like, nah, I got to be a legend. I got to get to the top. It's what night runners do in Light City, baby. And like, David, you're 18 years old. Shut up and just listen for a second.
And I think what's so well done, the world of Cyberpunk in general, I would assume this is true, reflected in the narrative of the game as well, is the fact that like it's capitalism and corporate greed has infiltrated society so deeply that like you have no choice to a good quote unquote life without just going up that corporate ladder. Like there is no good life that isn't that. And so it's like while you recognize that, and they do, like David and Gloria both recognize like Arasaka is the worst thing ever. It's also exactly where she feels like he needs to be because it's his only shot at having that kind of like immediate protection from a premium platinum healthcare membership and all that. There's really nothing starker about what it is than when they show up to the scene and they will not help Gloria because she doesn't have the good healthcare.
Yeah, that's something that happens in the game all the time. Is like you have if you don't have the most premium of insurance, they won't help you. You could have insurance and it still won't be enough for them to save you because saving your life is an extra cost. Which is what happens in episode 1. It's like the starkest, like most bleakest version of what America will become. Where like corporations do run everything and they do run the way you live. And like, if you don't suckle to the teat of capitalism, then like, you're just going to live in a gutter. And it's like, it's bleak, man. It's a bleak world. But again, like it makes those stories of like people rising to the top, even more fascinating because like the reasons they do it, why they do it, like how they do it. It's wild shit.
And siphoning in, sorry, real quick, Brandon, I do want you to get in on this. Siphoning in cybernetics as kind of your proxy of drug addiction.
Yes.
And like what it is, because like it's your only way to escape / compete.
Yes.
Is to get into that business and into that interconnectivity, but how dangerous that is. It's a very sinister, well-realized world through the anime. I'm sure through the game as well, but through the anime, they've captured it very concretely and succinctly. Brandon,
I'm just running through a thought real quickly that you guys triggered with what you were saying about corporate greed and things like that. And triggered, that's funny. About corporate greed and kind of like where America is going, where corporations run everything, and these kind of healthcare situations and things like that. And here's the thing though, Cyberpunk isn't original in thinking that. It's doing it in an interesting and original way, but like the idea that corporations run the world is not an original thought. And the fact that what's so interesting to me is to see people not to take an example from the bad side of the internet, but like so many people are resistant to that idea that corporations run the world, or that they don't have your best interests at heart or whatever. And so many people are resistant to that, and you just kind of have to wonder, like, so many people are having the same thoughts, and yes, it has kind of become the snake eating its own tail, but so many people have had these kind of parallel thoughts of the corporations running the world, that it's not. And the more we get into our own future, the less science fiction it becomes. Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting to see how we're kind of, there are less and less of us, but so many people are kicking and screaming into what we know to be the equivalent of Cyberpunk Edgerunner, the equivalent of a Cyberpunk world, or Blade Runner, or et cetera, what have you. How many sci-fi projects have done that? There's not really a point to that thought. It was just kind of a thought that I just kind of ran with. I will end with just saying that Cyberpunk is a very good example of this type of world.
Yeah. So Cyberpunk originally started in the 80s. So this isn't an original idea, but being in the 80s when like corporate greed was at its height, like it came out at the perfect time. Yeah. And unfortunately, it's only just gotten more.
It just keeps getting more
believable and real.
Yeah.
Which is really a bummer for the world we live in.
And bridging in back into the show from what you were saying, Brandon, like these people who are like resistant to the acknowledgement that corporations run the world kind of thing. It's all about not being willing to admit that you're not in control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's what the characters have here, right? Like the reason why the characters are able to do what they're able to do is because they've admitted that they're not in control, and they find a way to take their control.
That's what all the enhancements. That's what all the enhancements are for. It is them taking control.
Right. And like it's a double-edged sword to do that. But then you have like a lot of the other people that we see, for example, in the first episode that are going to the academy and everything. Those are people who will not admit that they're not in control. Mm-hmm. They live in the illusion that they are in control of their lives.
Oh yeah,
they're not.
Like the kid who could do kung fu and stuff. Like,
well, like he's
bought into it.
He's bought into it because his dad is higher up, mm-hmm. and we know his dad is higher up.
Yeah.
But like you also have like his other classmates and everything, and those are an exact type of like just the way that like the principal is a good example. Where he's that is a person who believes he's in control of his own life. He can't admit that he isn't. Whereas David knows flat out, and one of the reasons he hates the academy is because he knows he's not in control.
Yeah, I love in the last like couple episodes, that's such a good example of people thinking they're in control, because in the last couple episodes you have David who's working underneath Faraday, who's working underneath Arasaka, and everyone's fucking the person up under them. So Arasaka's like, we're screwing over Faraday, he doesn't know it, and Faraday's like, oh, I'm screwing over Arasaka, and they don't know, and David's just like, I'm gonna kill everybody.
Right, you're so right. Like every level of the people who set David up for that sabotage at the end believes they're in control, and the only person who actually is in control in the room is Atom Smasher.
Yes.
He's the only person who knows he's actually in control and has the power because he has the power.
Yeah.
He's the only one who knows that, and everybody else is just like you see it like when the guys like talking shit to Faraday completely up until the very last second when David is suddenly in front of them both, and they realize, oh, I'm not in control. Like when the car crashes into the chopper that Faraday's on.
I love that moment when Cyber Skeleton David Sandy's into the room at the end, and everyone's just like, what?
Yeah,
he's just a big Hulk man. Like when the animation is good, it's super good. In the first couple episodes, there's a scene where Lucy is on a stretcher,
which is
with David going down the hiway.
Yes,
and that is like the most beautifully animated thing I've seen all year. That's insane.
Which is really, frankly, to say when the animation is in motion, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Because the animation's always good.
Yeah.
But when it's in motion, it's exceptional.
Yeah. And anytime David or at the end Atom Smasher uses the Sandevistan, I love the way it's done. Because in the game, it's first person, you can't see what you're doing. But in third person, you see like the rainbow effect of him going in slow motion. So then it rewinds it and shows you it happening in real time. I love that. So it's like boom, boom, boom. And every time that happens, I'm like, God, this is so cool. Video games, oh my God, anime, I love it. It's so cool. Man, that's Sandy, y'all. You'll one day play Cyberpunk and you're like, I can do this? I can slow down time to 1/4 its speed and hack people's heads off without them knowing. Again, like the representation from the source material role-playing game and the video game, like it's just one for one. Like they're talking about Lexington weapons and smart pistols and tech pistols and like power rifles, and like this is all just stuff that I am like very aware of. And even like I've played Uncharted, but they're not like using like very super specific Uncharted stuff. Like this is specifically like there is nothing that's not from that game that's in the show. like everything. Like a character, Wakako, who is one of the fixers, she's not even on screen. She has like 3 like lines that show up in a text dialogue. She's one of the main characters from the game. Going to the Afterlife bar, that is the main place you hang out at in the game. And you go there for like 1 second and you meet some of the people there. I'm just like, everything's here. Like there's no wasted opportunity. There's so many shots where you're just driving or stopping. The heist where you get the cyber skeletons, a heist, you do that exact same thing in the game, but you're not getting a cyber skeleton, you're stealing money. It's just like the relationship between these two companies working together, it's just unparalleled. Like it is so well realized. I can't believe it. I love it. So
it really is something that we haven't seen quite on this level. I am being reminded of something as we're talking about this that does reference stuff from the game that it's from in a good way, but I can't remember what it is, and I could be misremembering it anyway. But either way, it is unprecedented the kind of way that this show has adapted its world. I mean, we've never seen it to this degree and done as well as it is.
Honestly, the next best one might be the Mario movie. Because now that we've seen that second trailer, like that they're doing platforming, they're doing like Donkey Kong stuff, they're doing Mario Kart stuff, like 2D platforming. Like that looks like that is incorporating shit from the game, but it's not obviously like Super Mario happened and then he gets transported to this world, right? It's doing its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we got, if you see the visual podcast, we got the crew behind us. I love all of these guys. Every time one of them dies, I'm just like, oh man.
All of them are very good characters. I really like them all. You did prepare me for it would be a bloodbath.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful for it, but I still hated seeing every single one of them pass away because every death is so. We get to know them exactly the amount that we need to care about their death.
Yep, 100%.
I think the only one who doesn't have a violent death is Dorio. Like, I mean, she gets shot, but she gets shot in the head and that's it. And her head doesn't explode. It's not, it's not visceral. Just, it's simple. Her body is left to in Maine's eyes, be put on a pyre, in a funeral way. Like she's kind of given a graceful death where everyone else's is very like dismembered body.
While still being incredibly sad because Maine is there.
What was the girl?
Going nuts.
What was the smaller girl's name?
Becca.
Her death.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Holy shit.
Bro. Her and her brother probably have like the most violent of the crew deaths. Like especially like her brother's like I just did not expect. That was jarring.
Yeah.
But even her death, we're so close to the end of the show that I didn't expect her death to happen. I was just like, okay, well, she's probably going to make it out of this fight alive. No, not even a little bit.
Kiwi, who I loved Kiwi, and then she's like a traitor, but she still feels bad about it, so she helps him in the end. Like
that was the only part where I'm like, I just wish I had a little bit more background on Kiwi to inform that decision, because it felt like I can buy the like, don't trust anyone and this is profitable to Kiwi, but I'm like, I guess I don't feel like we got enough of the character prior to that moment to make that not feel totally like a plot turn.
That's
instead
fair.
Of a character turn.
I'm not going to disagree with you. She makes that statement herself multiple times through the show of like, hey, don't trust anybody. So like when it happens, like it makes sense that it's her.
Yeah.
And I don't think if her ending was worse, I would probably agree with you. But because I think her ending is really great, and she ends up helping them, and then like you hear her get killed and stuff, like I think it balances it out for me.
One of the things that I find so interesting about this show, and I mentioned it the first time I finished it, is how almost opposite it is to the rest of Imaishi's projects, in a good way, almost in a refreshing way, actually. Ryan was talking about how a lot of the show emphasizes its small moments where shows like Gurren Lagann or Kill la Kill don't. And Promare is a movie, so it's going at a million miles a minute, so it doesn't really have time for small moments. Kill la Kill and Gurren Lagann both have very good small moments, but the point of those shows, the bigger, the better. You fight. You keep on fighting to get better, to will the universe to bend at you, to will the universe to bend at your will, and so in order to beat insurmountable galaxy-ending odds.
Yes,
that is not Cyberpunk, and that is not
Yeah.
the show.
They're trying to do that, but it doesn't work.
Right. The universe, very importantly, the universe is fighting back, and constantly fighting back because the universe is so terrible. And it's beating them down, and so much so that if you are familiar with Studio Trigger, then you know that that bigger means better. Once David, any other Trigger show, once David gets into that skeleton at the end of the show, he's won. He's going to be okay. He's going to win. He's going to be great. Everything's going to be happy. He's going to walk away happily ever after. No, that's actually a very bad thing in this case. It is very much the reverse of Trigger. It is very much like the bigger you get, the worse off you are.
Right. You touched on it, and I think it's a critical point. We talking about Imaishi's body of work. He has a consistent theme that he loves and he does all the time, and it is here in Edgerunners, which is that willpower is the most important power in the universe.
Yes.
And willpower is usually what means you win the day.
Mm-hmm.
And for all of the other projects that we're talking about, that means like absolute total victory. You have the willpower to do it, you will do it, and you will champion it, and you will win. Sure, you'll take losses in some places, but you will win the ultimate day. And for David, it is still, he has the willpower. That is the whole thing. Like I'm special is Imaishi's willpower put into David. Is the concept of, I believe I can do this. So he lasts longer than a lot of other people, and he doesn't win the ultimate victory. He just wins the victory of I saved Lucy. And that's ultimately all he gets, and that's all you can get in the world of Cyberpunk. But that is Imaishi still doing that theme, just translated into the world where everybody has to have a pretty bad ending.
Yeah.
But what's so interesting about that is that, in a way, Cyberpunk is almost antithetical to what Imaishi's values are, what he believes, what he injects into his project. And any other director, I shouldn't say any other director, I'm sure there would be directors who could, but oftentimes when you get someone, a creator who is antithetical to the subject matter, it clashes. And Imaishi is able to adapt his themes, adapt his the kind of things that are important to him within Cyberpunk in a natural way that allows the show to exist and probably be better than it would have been in anyone else's hands.
Yeah, he allows his protagonists to have that dominant willpower, but with that comes like absolute stubbornness.
Yes.
And David has that. That's what he has. But the thing is that like, and the show tells you like this is a tragedy. You know this is a tragedy. There's a lot of foreshadowing of the cyberpsychosis. You know this is the path David's going to walk because he's that stubborn.
The show starts with a cyberpsycho.
Right. Yeah. And like, you know, it's constantly you're being reminded there's Maine, there's the nightmare that he's forced to live through of his own cyberpsychosis, which is then translated later when it starts happening of the guns just bursting out of everywhere.
God, it's that's so sad.
Which is really, really great. It's that stubbornness. And the thing is that like, that stubbornness is what gets David to the finish line of his version of this story. But again, like the world is a tragic world, and the story is a tragedy. And so Imaishi gets exactly what he can usually do, just scaled into the story of the world that fits it. And you're right. Like he's able to do that, but bring it to what is a world that does not appreciate the same things he usually does.
Yeah.
Thinking of our two, like our cyber psychos that we journey through with, first Maine, and like one of like the most haunting shots, and like I remember from the first time I watched it, it's after he kills a bunch of people and David comes in and Maine, full cyber psycho mode, looks at David going, "Hey kid, you doing okay?" And his eyes are straight up bugging.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's some scary shit, man. Because you don't know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
But he has enough of himself to realize, like, David, it's over, bro. I'm good. I'm done running, baby. It's all good.
I'm sure to you, Brandon, possibly to you as well, Ryan. There was a very like Kamina Simone kind of feel to that moment for Maine and David. I'm seeing a lot of like Simone translated into David of wanting to take that mantle from the person he idolized, and that kind of thing. That's Gurren. That's
okay. The names are
you got Kamina, who's like the big like champion of everything, and Simone like really wants to fill in that role once he loses his bro, and that's very much what's happening with David here in Maine.
And he takes his arms because he said he would give them to him.
I think just touching on like how we're talking about like how Imaishi has done all this and translated his usual storytelling in, I think that's why it's important that the show ends where it does, which is with Lucy actually getting to the moon, rather than like you could have ended the show on David's death.
Oh my God.
You could have just ended the show there. It can end as the tragedy that it is, but it wouldn't. Imaishi wouldn't have felt right leaving that there.
Yeah.
You have to have like, what is your victory for the show? What is your tiny victory? Your tiny victory is she got there.
Yeah.
That's your tiny victory.
Oh my God. When she's on the moon and then she sees David in that song. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't, oh my God. Yeah, that is such a powerful song. That is such a good little bop. Plays at the beginning, you hear it 1,000 times in Cyberpunk, but then you hear it at the end as David's like losing his mind and dying. I'm like, man, that's a great way to use the same song multiple times as different meanings. Oh wow.
Yeah.
And that final fight, when you got two Sandys going against each other and just rainbows are happening around, like, so cool. Atom Smasher is such an asshole in video game form, anime form, tabletop role playing. Like one of the most rude dudes who ever lived. I'm gonna swear real quick. There's a line in the game where he meets you and he's like, "Aren't you a piece of raw fuckable meat?" And I'm like, "Excuse me, sir. I cannot wait to murder you." He's in the show for like 2 minutes and like he leaves such an impression. Just full Borg man. He's a bad man.
Yeah, that dude. The moment you see him, he's terrifying.
Again, like he's the only person we see walk in and know I'm in control.
Yeah.
I have the full control of the room.
He's head empty, full murder.
I appreciate like you giving me the context of Atom Smasher in the game. Like I appreciate that in this context of the show, like David at least gets the out of Atom Smasher I'll admit you made it fun for a bit.
Yeah.
Which is like as good of a compliment as you can kind of get on Atom Smasher for a protagonist that's not going to beat him.
Yeah. Very much the game. You are very much a David Martinez type where like you are the ultimate edge runner. And as you go up and you get higher and higher in the game, like you become like a legend just like David does. And depending on your ending, you can die or live, depending on what ending you get. Which is a great thing about role-playing games because like your choices, if you're an asshole, might lead you to dying. And if you're a good person, maybe you'll survive. And that's what's fun about role-playing games.
I think the translation of cyberpsychosis throughout the anime is super good. I mean this in a lot of contexts. I mean the jittery eyes to let us know when it's happening. I think that's really good. I think that yes, the shaking, the actual state of psychosis. We see a lot with Maine with the like kind of wandering a desert and what he's seeing and what he's not seeing kind of thing. And it's when really one of my favorites is the part with David where David's like walking the old stomping grounds of Night City in his mind, and then he'll be walking on the street and then the car that he's in will come and catch him and then we'll go back into what's going on in the real world. I thought that all was done super, super well.
100%. Yeah.
There's a few.
I had to think. You got anything, Brandon?
There's a few that desert, the cyberpsychosis is kind of like the desert that Maine is in. I don't know if I'm just misremembering Cowboy Bebop. It's been a really long time since I saw it, but it did trigger a memory from Cowboy Bebop. I wonder if Imaishi did look at Cowboy Bebop for inspiration for the show, because thematically they are somewhat similar.
It's honestly hard for me to say that he didn't, given having watched it earlier this year. Again, we talked about like the similarity between how he's handled conversational scenes here. There's a style aesthetic of like choices and how he frames characters that feels so in tone of Cowboy Bebop that I'm not going to say like he intended to completely one for one it, but like Imaishi is certainly somebody who's seen Cowboy Bebop more than once, and whatever amount of that might have lived in his brain to affect what he was translating here, I think is perfectly readable as probably accurate. Cowboy Bebop is a seminal piece of work, so it's not surprising to me that this informs on it. The voice of Maine for the dub is the voice of Jax from Cowboy Bebop.
That makes sense.
So like, there's a lot of I don't know if that would be true in the Japanese, but it's certainly true for the dub. So like there's a lot of connection there.
I love it, and they don't ever explain it, but like you see young Maine in the desert running from something, and like I don't need any more. The story is like he's running from something, and like that's what drives him. And like then like he becomes a cyber self. He's like, oh, I'm strong enough. I don't need to run anymore. And I'm like, man, I don't need to know what you're running from, but it's really sad that you're still here. Again, like the giant bug eyes. David does it.
I said, sorry, real quick. I said Jax. I meant Jet.
Jet Black.
So sorry.
Jax is a Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I knew it was wrong as it came out of my mouth.
Yeah. But David has that moment when he's in the helicopter, Rebecca's so great with David. Like first she's like, she clearly likes him, and she's like, yo, David, let's go make out or whatever. And then she's like, no, I get it. You like Lucy. But David is in full cyber psychosis mode in the helicopter, and he's like, haha, yeah, mom, going straight to the top. All right. And Rebecca's like, oh, my sweet boy. Oh, oh, don't worry, David. I'll jack you full of shit until you die. I love you, man. It's okay. I was really surprised by Rebecca and how like she is what is in the anime community called a lolly. She is a little girl who's doing crazy things, right? And like Netflix, it was really funny because Netflix in the American side was like, hey, can you not include this character? Because like generally in anime shows, she's like a bad representation of characters and like, you know, like underage girls and blah, 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 blah. And the Cyberpunk crew was like, no, first of all, she's an adult. She's just tiny. This is an anime trope. Like, it's going to be okay. She's important to the story. And like, I'm glad she's here because she's great.
I remember the headline. Exactly. Studio Trigger demands the Lolita stay.
Yeah. And like, I get it. Like, there are a lot of anime tropes that I hate in other animes, but like, I don't think they're egregious in this show. Cause like they're all like, these are all adults, you know. David might just be 18 years old or whatever, but like, you know, it's an adult.
So I will say this is super funny because I was wrong. They're not the same voice actor. I want to double check it and just be sure because they're close, but they're not the same voice actor. However, the voice of Maine is the voice of Jax in Mortal Kombat.
Oh, interesting.
So you were right.
So I was right,
but wrong.
Listen,
that's funny.
Hey, we got there in the end.
Yeah, it's so clearly pulling from a knowledge of there is a sense of Cowboy Bebop doing the space western thing. There is a sense of like outlawism and being those people, and like I wouldn't call this a western show, but there's western tropes. I think that you're right, Brandon. Like that's a part of the choice of the desert. Mm-hmm. Why we see Maine when he was young, the beginning of that episode, we see Maine young, and that's why he's going back to that place, is running through the desert. That's what he did before he got the cybers. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's an accident. There's this sense of an outlawism to Maine specifically of being that kind of person that's supposed to reference that idea visually.
Yeah, and like you see, like there is a little bit of Western in this, but like there are different gangs. Like you see the Maelstrom gang, they're like the super heavy roboticized face, like red face monster guys. they're always assholes.
No, nobody's more Western than Falco.
Falco? Oh my God, Matt Mercer?
Yeah.
From Critical Role fame? Yeah. He's great. Their getaway driver. I love that dude.
That dude's a cowboy. In Cyberpunk for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we basically got all the characters. Yeah, I really like Lucy. I like that she was this like hardcore thief, and then she fell in love, and she's like, I kind of don't want to do this anymore. I got what I needed, and it's you, David. And David's like, nah, but one more job, baby. This one's for you. Like, David, just hold on, stop, just listen to me. It's okay. You don't need to get bigger arms.
Well, it's the tragedy. It's the tragedy of Lucy that's so interesting to me in this show. Like David, you see coming a mile away, but going the direction he goes in. But Lucy has such an interesting trajectory that by the time the show time jumps, you don't want her to die. You like she's of all the characters, she's the one where I was just like, I mean, like I know that I know realistically all these characters need to die probably, but like I don't want Lucy to. I want her to get that victory that we were talking about. And one of the things that I think is really compelling about her is that she is secretly trying to save David the same way that David is trying to save her, and they both aren't telling. They're not telling each other that this is what's going on, and it's causing issues with them in their relationship. But they can't trust each other, I guess, in a way to tell them that they're trying to do the same thing.
Well, so I thought about this while I was watching it. That Lucy, you don't want Lucy to die because Lucy has abandoned fatalism. Lucy believes in a hope for tomorrow, and the thing is that David never did. David found love in Lucy, but David never believed in a better tomorrow. Mm-hmm. David is watching and living through a moment of cyberpsychosis because he wants to feel that power and he wants to feel that control. And he's chasing that. And the thing is, Lucy knows him well enough to know that. She can't tell him that that's what she's doing, because in telling him, she would have to tell him that the reason they want him is to attach him to a cyber skeleton. And if he found out that existed and they wanted him to do it, he would take it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. He would choose to take it if he knew that was on the table.
It's a
And she
lose-lose.
knows that. She knows that cybers are more important to him than anything else, unfortunately.
Yeah.
He loves her, but he can't stop his cyber addiction.
Yeah, and that is a good point, Brandon. Like she is like secretly going around like assassinating people and fixing files and breaking files. So like the trail to David will die, so he can just live a life. Because he is choosing to be this murder machine that this corporation wants, and she's doing her best to be like, you don't have to do it.
Because it's that really defining scene, I think, where it's just after David's come out with the full bag of meds, and he's like, "You're not coming." The doctors tells him like, "You're not going to come back here. Like this is it. You're heading down the road. You're gonna burn out."
Yeah.
And Lucy in that moment, like it's Lucy saying like, "I've got to go, but like I'll see you at home. Like I got to do this thing." And Lucy, you kind of want to say in that moment, like, Lucy, just tell him what you're actually doing. But she can't, because David is already clearly off the edge.
Yeah.
Again, if he finds out that he's got this opportunity to take the cyber skeleton, he'll take it. It's not going to be oh, you're right, I guess I should scale back and we should go live a life away from more. That's not the choice he'll make, and she knows it.
Yeah.
And that's so bleak. It's so bleak to be in love with somebody that you know is prone to self-destruction.
Absolutely, yeah. And that doctor, like, I really like that doctor character.
He's a great character.
Because like for so much of it, he's just like, oh, like I'm jacking off in front of you, and like I'm a weirdo. But like at the end, like he does care for this kid. He doesn't want to see him die.
When David's psychosis is going crazy and he gets all the eyes and the sharp teeth.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that really that makes David such a tragic character, is because he inadvertently made everyone a better person. Whether or not he tried to or not, everybody around David became a better person because David was in their lives, and David became a worse person because everyone was in his life. And it's kind of
it's not sorry, just real quick, it's not because of the people around him, it's the cybers. It's purely like it's the cyber addiction.
No, I know. I didn't mean that as a negative way. David chose the path he went down on. It is not necessarily but the reason why he became the way he did is because there were so many people around him that, and as those people see David go down this direction, they start to change because they don't want to see David do what essentially a lot of them did themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it makes David such a more tragic person because everybody in his life, including the people that everyone told him to stay away from, told him to turn back.
Yeah,
before
doctor,
it's too late.
Even the doctor's like, I remember you coming in here. You were a fresh-faced boy. Now look at you. You're a crazy man.
And again, going back to that point of like Lucy knowing for sure that David will choose cybers over anything else. Look at the moment when she was in the deep dive in Tanaka, and Tanaka woke up, and David didn't put him under because David wanted to know why Tanaka wanted him. He wanted to know what he could get.
Because he's special.
And Lucy was in danger in that moment. Like David didn't like. As much as he loves her, David didn't care over the amount that he could get from the cybers. He put everything in jeopardy because he was curious about what he could get.
Yeah.
What a show!
Rough. It's so sinister. I think it's actually a really good depiction of a type of addiction. Honestly, I really do. It's that steep slope that like you're watching a arguably good person, slip down very, very quickly.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things about the video game Cyberpunk 2077 is there's like 24 side quests of you going to take out cyber psychos, and every time you do, you get the dossier on how they became cyber psycho, and 99% of the time it's a normal dude who had bad things happen to him and he went crazy, and then the government was like, we can't deal with this because you're a homo psycho, we're just going to leave you alone. And it's tragic. Every single one is tragic, and it's like, oh man, like it is again, like you might be replacing like a metal skeleton with meth, but it's like it's the same thing. It's people having bad things happen to them and then nobody helping them in the end, so they become homeless monsters. It's really tragic, but again, like it allows for like beautiful, fruitful stories to grow from decrepit dirt. And what you see with like Lucy, again, like Lucy being on the moon, that is such a beautiful, sweet moment of like, this girl's been through literal hell. She's basically like 11 in Cyberpunk world. She was raised from birth to be an assassin, a net runner assassin.
That's a great flashback.
Yeah, and it's again, and the thing from the games where like corporations are trying to create like their own little armies. It's just really, really sinister, sad stuff. But I I love when shows like this can birth beauty and like happiness, because like
I know this lore is in the game, but I really liked how we touch on the internet of Cyberpunk being broken into different pieces, but you can access the old net. These net runners can access the old net in some cases.
Yeah,
that is, the fact that they even touched that at all is just goes to like how far they wanted to go with this anime, because like, Rich Bartmoss, a dude in like 2030, he destroyed the internet by being just the world's greatest hacker, and he basically turned like every single independent, like IGN got broken off, and it's just own little cyber world now, and GameSpot's its own little cyber world, and there's just millions of just cyber worlds just broken in like this like ghost internet that exists now, because the internet doesn't exist anymore. It is like it's all like futuristic old school technology and stuff, like peer-to-peer, one-to-one. That's why people can like hack your brain and stuff, because like it's more one-to-one peer than giant internet. But that is such a fascinating thing that you do so much. You spend so much time in the old internet in the game, and it looks super cool and digital like the show does, and it's like a different look of animation too. And I'm like, man, this is like good shit. Really cool.
Something else I want to shout out about the show that I think they did really well is they don't hypersexualize their female characters. Like we see them naked, and there's attention drawn to that, but it's not the same kind of fixation that a lot of other anime will do with female bodies.
100%, yes.
Not all anime, but certainly a lot. And even arguably less so than some other Imaishi productions have done, specifically Gurren Lagann. I think it's actually very thoughtful in the way it's approached.
The world of Cyberpunk, like, you can look however you want. You see Kiwi's got multiple color eyes, and she's got like a weird cool gas mask and like pink or purple hair or whatever. Like, you can look however you want, and a lot of people in this world are just nude because they're really, really hot. And like, again, like I love Evangelion, and they like sexualize those kids sometimes, and like this, it's like, no, just sometimes people are naked, and you don't have to make a big deal about it.
I really like the whatever, what's the girl's name again with the gas mask on?
Kiwi.
I really appreciate anytime animation can do something really cool. What that kind of looked like when we see the mask off of her, there's nothing there. It's just a blank space. I think always looks really cool to me.
Yeah, when Maine clocks her. Oh.
On both those notes, another anime that I think they kind of are adapting quite well into what they're doing, at least in visual language, is Ghost in the Shell.
Yes.
Ghost in the Shell also does a very good job of showing the naked female form without sexualizing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really good. I think that there's a lot of similarity between that and like that aside, like when a female body, like there's a shot or two in the show where a female body is meant to be sexualized, and that's like part of the point. But when it's not that, when we're talking about like them just doing like the ice baths and things, it's not sexualized. I think that's done just as well as Ghost in the Shell does on the regular.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. It's a good show. Thinking about Cowboy Bebop again, like Spike and David are not that similar, but the finale of them are very similar. This decision to like, I'm going to my death by this kind of tragic choice. If you don't remember, like Spike in Cowboy Bebop, he absolutely must go kill his rival, and it doesn't matter, and he knows he'll probably die doing it, and there's not even like the girl's no longer at stake at the point that he decides to go give his life. And he does it, and it's that same kind of feeling of like, well, there he goes.
Fatalism.
Yeah.
See you later, Space Cowboy.
Right.
Yeah, I adore the show. It makes me just like love the world of Cyberpunk so much more, because like, again, like they put the time and effort to show like, hey, here's everything about the world. Like, we're not just gonna like, hey, here's a cool futuristic world. Like, they really, like, so many lines are using specific dialogue, gonk, preem, all these other words that I think are great. Very like Star Trek jargon kind of stuff that they bring in.
Gonk.
I think it's great. I love when they talk on the phone, they do like a type of double speak that's only on phones. And it's to accentuate like how intensing. So they go very, very, or so. Like they accentuate certain words. For some reason, it's only in the phone talk. And I think that's just like a really cool addition that like you might not even pick up on. But it's just like a cool little addition.
They also speak in a shorthand too, kind of like texting.
Yeah.
So not everything is as thought out in the sentencing as well.
Business, prima.
The animation of the HUD stuff. I know this is coming from the game, but it's all integrated into the anime super well.
Yeah, and they didn't have to.
It was wild.
Doing like a it's like psychic talk basically.
Yeah. It was wild to hear Giancarlo Esposito do that phone talk when he started doing the double speak and stuff. I was like, oh, this is kind of weird.
Yeah, Giancarlo shows up in so much stuff, and it's cool that like he can be in a Star Wars and he can be in a Cyberpunk. He's great. It's like he's doing his Giancarlo thing. So I'm not gonna say like he's doing anything different, but he's just great at what he does. Right. He's such a good like double
He was
crosser.
A good voice for Faraday for sure.
I love Faraday's look, the three eyes. I think it's a great villainous look.
I really want to know like what advantage does that serve you?
Yeah,
I really wanted to know.
Yeah,
he gave us a hint at what his Norman Osborn is going to sound like.
Ooh, man, if yeah, like I don't want him being Xavier or Magneto. He would be a great Norman Osborn.
He is Norman Osborn, and freshman year, remember?
Oh, freshman. Oh, okay, yeah. That's I thought you meant like live action or whatever. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
He's gonna be Norman Osborn in Spider-Man freshman year next year if that show ever is coming out.
I would love to see that show. That was cool. But yeah, love this anime. Definitely, it's not getting a season 2. It's over.
Talking about Faraday's eyes when he dies and you have the multiple eyeballs splayed out. I thought that was really good.
Yeah. David's final like shot to the face. It's like a beautiful like poetic blood spurt butterfly looking thing. Yeah. I'm glad that like he dies violently, but like they didn't just show his face get it like brutalized like every other character. Like it's kind of pretty, I guess.
My favorite episode is probably the one where David's bonding with the crew. It's like mostly montages of time passing of him getting to know each member and bonding with them. I really adored that episode. I thought that episode was done really, really well for shorthand.
Is that 5?
Connecting them. I think it's 4.
4, okay.
Yeah. Because 5 is the one where the one with the gold hands gets killed.
Oh yeah.
So it's episode 4, I think. Really good. Really good show.
Yeah, I'm glad we all. I'm assuming you liked it, Brandon. I'm glad we all enjoyed it. Yeah, like I'm just so glad that like again, this was not just a popular anime. This was so popular it brought millions more people to Cyberpunk, a game that wasn't dead. It was getting updated, but like a lot of people wrote off, and then they decided, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And I'm glad they did because like boy howdy, when they come back for the expansion next year and Idris Elba is the guy you have to fight, oh boy, they're gonna love it, and I'm gonna love it.
I'm just looking at just a couple of notes. The way that David encounters Lucy, like the seeing the hair, as a piece that he's kind of following. I thought was really good.
Yeah.
When David like has used the Sandevistan the first time like too many times and he passes out from the nosebleed. That was a super funny moment.
I think this might be. I love Imaishi quite a bit. This is the kind of thing. This challenged me in a way that his other projects hadn't, and I really appreciated that. Because I'm with him on his journey to make the biggest, most bombastic thing he wants to make. I'm there whenever he wants to do it. And it was so cool to see something so different from him, but also the same. We've talked about it like to death, but like this was really great. This should be a gold standard for adapting video games, and good on Netflix to give this show to a Japanese animation studio and in the hands of a studio like Trigger, because so many of their shows, I've talked about it to death on our other show on the Fake Nerd podcast, so many of their shows are just given to Korean animated companies because they're cheaper and they will work outside of their country, whereas Japanese animation studios often won't. And it's really nice to see a proper anime come from Netflix.
Yeah. I am. Again, like this could have had like half the references from the game, and it still would have been an incredible show as long as you kept, like the character work and stuff. But like the fact that they went so hard into like, we want to make a cyberpunk anime in every single capacity possible, like visually, audio, like everything. Like we want you to recognize it if you're familiar with it. Is such a feat that again, like no other adaptation I've ever seen has come close to this. And like there are a lot of really great ones.
Sparkz, you talked about it way in the beginning, and I didn't really highlight it, but yeah, you're absolutely correct. The sound design in this show is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love the sound design in the show.
Yeah, I think from sound to music, all of it, it's just mixed very, very well. Two of the other quick things I wanted to highlight. When David first gets to Sandevistan, the blood soaking through his jacket.
Oh,
it's
in the back.
Super, super powerful imagery.
Yeah.
And the moment where he kills the woman who's like his mom.
Yeah, and the guns coming out of her face.
Well, that, but also just like the way that affects him, the way it's changed him. Like we see him looking at the picture of his mom and thinking about it and crying.
Yeah.
As much as David has pursued certain things and wanted this power and wanted the cybers and wanted to, kill other people who he considers like goons and bad people and all that kind of thing. That's the one like innocent life in his eyes he's taken.
Yeah.
And that's really hard for him. And I thought that was a really, really strong, smart moment to take on.
It happens in like an episode, but like you see his hand shake and you're like, all right, cyberpsychosis, it's probably starting to happen. But then there's a scene where he's not even watching TV. He's just looking at the TV. He's just hunched over. He's like, yeah, I'm kind of just zoning out. And you're like, this guy's going. This guy's so going. Yeah. Like it's so tragic. And Lucy's like, she sees it happening and is like, how much can I really do to change this? It's really sad stuff. But I love it. I love you, Lucy. The last thing I'll say, the music. Every song that is in this show is in the game. My bank account is 00. Love that song. That's in the game multiple times. All the gun sound effects, like all of that. Again, like they use like the names of the guns, like the Lexington and stuff like that. So like all that stuff is just so well thought out, and I appreciate again, like art directors and like music supervisors and like everyone from the game working with this Japanese studio, working with Netflix. So many different hands in this pot, and it turned into something just premium.
Makes the world feel real. Makes the world feel expansive and lived in, and yeah.
Love it.
All right. Anything else?
Brandon, you gonna play the game now?
No.
Probably. I've been intrigued ever since I watched the show. I just haven't found the time yet.
That's what I want to hear.
Mm-hmm. Like I would love for that.
Sometime next year.
Maybe.
A couple of other things sometime next year. There's a couple of other things, and then more things coming out that I'll probably want to tackle. But it's there. I want to get to it.
They just released today the Cyberpunk, the Witcher 3 next gen PS5 thing. Yeah. I already downloaded it and started playing it. Thank you, Cyberpunk. Thank you, CD Projekt Red. You make the most complex, fun games. I love you.
Sparkz, since it's your show, why don't you play us out?
Okay. So this has been a very special episode, but still a regular episode of Animation Station, where we got to do Cyberpunk Edgerunners, which I'm super excited about. There's more Animation Station stuff that we'd like to get to at some point. Who knows if that'll ever happen? Certainly, I know one that I want to put all the Fake Nerd crew through is Chainsaw Man, which is currently out there. So, look for more of Animation Station on the horizon. But more importantly, we're in a lot of other places where we do the Fake Nerd podcast and Fake Nerds Watch and all the other stuff that you'll find here on our YouTube channel. Basement Arcade Pause Menu, Basement Arcade, those things are related to video games. Around the time that this has come out, probably part of or all of our Avatar Way of Water discussions are up, and we have a discussion of the original Avatar, and we've got our holiday annual coming up for our Fake Nerd crew. All kinds of fun
we talked
stuff.
About the Game Awards, if you care about that.
That's going to be out on Pause Menu, so you got a lot to look forward to over here on the channel. So thanks for checking this out, and hopefully there'll be more in the future. And Brandon, where can they find you?
I'm at BT McClure on all the social medias, and you can find me writing for CBR, KaijiRamamedia.com, and AtomicGeekdom.com.
Right. And Ryan?
You can find me putting all of my skill points into intelligence so I can become the ultimate net hacker like Kiwi and Lucy at DJ Tony Snark 616.
And you can find me edge running towards playing that Cyberpunk game soon at Sparkz Witty on Instagram and Twitter, SPARKZ Witty. You can find all our other stuff here on the YouTube channel or follow us on Fake Nerd Podcasts on all the social medias. And that'll do it. Hit like, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, we are now departing.
Hold. What is it? Hold.
Oh, you're doing the. Oh,
I'm doing the Chris
I thought you
Pratt.
started trying to do the Obi one, but you're doing the Pratt.
The Chris Pratt. Hold.
Click.
Wait. I got
Get rid of
one.
the clicks.
I got one.
You don't even need the clicks in the end.
You just need this.
You just need hands.
No, you need your second hand. Now that you're not doing the clicker, you do both.
Why are you
there's
doing
only-
that, Sam Neill?
That's only if there's 2 raptors.
Yeah. What about a third one? You got to put your foot up. What's happening here?
If there's a third one, you better hope there's another guy because you're fucked.